All right. So here I have this sample project I always use with the little house up in Norway. So once you have all your sheets set up, and of course it has to be sheets, otherwise it's not going to work the way we want it to be. In this case here, you can see I didn't use the SFB code because it didn't make any sense in this case. But you guys should put that in. And if you want, I'll show you where all that stuff is again. I just showed it to Adrian, so I'll show it to you again. But what we can do, once all your sheets are set up, we can go up to the R and we can go to export. And all these different export options, we have one that's called DWF. So if I select DWF, you can see it's showing us a preview of the sheet that we're in at the time. But I can change this to show us an entire set of sheets. So I have one that's called concept set, which is basically all the sheets that have been set up in the project. Now I can just press next. And then I can just put it somewhere on the, let's put it on the desktop. And just press OK. And it actually, what it's doing is it's printing a high quality vector based image of each individual sheet. So it's going to take a little bit of time to do that. But once it's done, and here's what I've prepared earlier. Once it's done and you upload it to Autodesk A360, it should be something like this. If I open this one up, you've got all the drawings set up to look at any way you want to. And of course, we could just press View in here, and we could see the individual sheets, and then we can go and select the sheets and select which one we want. But it's in complete detail. So you can zoom in to any level you possibly need. It's slightly pixelated on this one here because I put some of those nice view settings on Revit, so it gets nice shading and so forth on the A4 size. But if you can see that, if you look at the actual dimensions, it's completely straight, you know. Whereas this is a little bit fuzzy because I gave it that shading on it. The dimensions are completely straight, and it's that kind of level of quality, which means that I can always zoom in into complete, you know, right down. And it doesn't start to pixelate, and that's the reason to use the DWF files. It means that the drawing is always of high quality. Once you have it in there, you have it in your project folder in A360. You can just press this little share button up here, share, and then just copy the link, go back into the Prezi, and hopefully, if I press Control V to paste, nothing happens. Yeah, I need to press. Did it come in? There it is. Then it's there. So that means that if we're going through the presentation file and we want to see the actual drawing set, all I need to do is click on this link, and anybody who has access to the link, they don't have to have access to your A360 because you've shared it. It's now publicly available to anybody who has the link. We can go through and get access to the drawings and have a look at all your drawings like that. So that means you only have to paste them in once. So that means you can use, maybe you can take if you're making a presentation and you want to show like focused areas of the drawings or 3D views or whatever, that's something else, that's an image. But the actual drawing set is just as important. So that's kind of the way you get the drawing set into Prezi, okay? It may not be part of your presentation. You may only have like one image that you want to talk about, but your drawing set is here. That means we can go in and see the drawing set that backs up what you're talking about in your presentation. Does that make sense? Because there's too many drawings for you to go through each one in order to explain it in detail. It doesn't give you that snappy 7-minute presentation that you kind of need to do for one of these exams. Today was I was going to make first of all talk a little bit more about curtain walls, because we started doing curtain walls back in the previous project. But I want to get into how you make your own personalized curtain wall panels and stuff, so you can actually, you know, make components that you can make yourself and add them to curtain walls in some kind of way that's efficient. So I'm going to just start off by making a template here. And the first thing we'll do, I'm just going to draw a curtain wall. So I'm going to select wall, change it over here. I'm going to turn it to, first of all, the storefront. We went through a little bit about this before, but let's just do it again. So we have this this curtain wall, storefront curtain wall. Oh God, this is going to be a great video. And of course, we can do the usual stuff, is that we can edit the type, we can change the spacing between things, we can change everything to whatever we want. Let's say we want this to be 1200, and we'll leave that to 24 and so on, and press OK. You know, we can modify the spacing of the curtain wall, whatever, and we can cycle through by pressing Tab, select the different mullions, the different panels, change them to whatever we want. Like we did in the previous one, so we could change them to, not a stacked wall, let's change it to a masonry wall. So you can see that curtain walls can be used in a way to panelize the building as well. They're not necessarily glazed elements with a frame, they can actually be a panelized thing as well. So if you have a building that's made up of several panels and you really want to stress that, you can actually just make a curtain wall minus the mullions, and it will actually divide it up into panels for you. And then you can add doors and windows and so forth to it if you want. And then just to keep going with, or to repeat some of the stuff we did before, we can also just make a standard curtain wall like this, which has no divisions. And then we can make a curtain grid that allows you to divide it up any way you want, whatever you want to do. And then we can, you know, modify it afterwards if we want, and add, you know, a certain amount of detail in there. And afterwards, we can either select it, select mullions, and we can add mullions to these grid lines. And of course, those mullions are controlled by metric profiles, just like everything else. Or we can just add it to all the grid lines like that. So then we have a panel that we can use. We could tab through there and modify it afterwards. Delete the grid lines, delete the mullions, and you know, add things to it in different ways, whatever you want to do. So you have a lot of control over any kind of individualized panel you want. We can also use the same edit profile tools, you know, to modify the profile of the curtain wall panel if we want to, just by trimming it together like that. And then come back and add mullions to things. So you can basically make any shape you want, and you can also add curtain walls to panels. So if, for example, you wanted to add a certain division of mullions within this panel here, I could actually select it and change it to any curtain wall panel that I've already designed. So let's say we want to use the storefront one in here, so that we can actually embed curtain walls within curtain walls. So you can increase the level of complexity all the time. So that's kind of a simple way to do it. And of course, we can use the mullions to create sunshades, all that kind of stuff that we did in the previous video. So that's kind of the basics of it, just to go back over some of the stuff we did in the previous video. But what I wanted to do today is to actually set up our own door type with a door handle and everything that we can set into a curtain wall here. So I'm just going to make a panel there, and I'm going to put a mullion around it, and then I'm going to tab through and delete the mullion on the ground floor. So now we know that this is going to be a door. Okay, am I going too fast? No. Just tell me if I'm going too fast. Okay, so we want to make a nice door in here. Okay, so we kind of played with that stuff when we were doing the Maskinhallen, but not in terms of curtain wall panels, because you can't just insert. I couldn't take a door here and just insert it into the wall, because it only works in, you know, the normal type of wall. We need to actually make a door type that's a curtain wall panel. So we use the family editors as usual. So this is where we're starting to get more into families as well. So I'm going to go into new family, and I'm going to make a metric curtain wall panel, and I'm going to open that up. And if I go to the exterior view and press zoom all, effectively these reference planes define the outer edge of the panel. So whatever we do, we have to make sure our panel fits within these reference planes, and it's locked to those reference planes, because it means that we can control the curtain wall panel that we make in the project, in the actual curtain wall panel that we design, without having to worry about the dimensions of it not being stretched correctly. So let's make a very simple one to start with. I'm going to make an extrusion that's going to be like a frame, and then another extrusion that's going to be like a piece of glass in the middle or whatever. And then I'm just going to talk a little bit about parametrics. So I'm going to make an extrusion. I'm just going to make a rectangle, and I'm just going to draw a random rectangle like this. And I'm drawing it randomly because I want to lock these elements to the reference planes out here, because the reference planes are the frame of the curtain wall. So I'm going to press align. Oh God, I do it backwards. I always do this backwards. Align this way, and then this. We get the little lock tool here, so I'm going to lock it, and we just go around and do that, like that, like that, like that. So now we've locked the outer edge of this panel to the reference planes, and I'm going to make an inner edge of the panel as well. So I'm going to do the same thing again. I'm going to draw a rectangle. Like that. So we need to have a way of fixing the width of the panel here, and we want it to be a parametric method, because we don't want to have to change it each time. We want to just be able to type in a figure and it will change the width of the panel for us. So the way to do that is we need to actually just take a dimension. Let's take a dimension between here and here. And at the moment it's 895, and this one is 739. This one is they're just all random dimensions at the moment. So I want to make this a parameter that we can type in. I want to make this something called frame width. So we can actually just type in a number, and it's going to change the width for us globally. So I'm going to select the dimension, and once I select it, you get these little options up here at the top. And one of them is called label. So if I open label and say add parameter, in here, this is where I get the option to add the parameter for what we want. So I'm going to call it frame width. Whoops. Frame width. And we're leaving it a type parameter because we want it to apply to every single version of this type of panel that we want. If we change it to an instance parameter, we'd have to change it individually for each panel. So I'm going to leave it as a type parameter, press OK. And you can see that it's called frame width 895. So let's say in this design we actually want the frame to be the same all the way around. So I'm going to select, hold down Control, select all three of these, and I'm going to change them so that they all have the frame width parameter. And you can see it modifies the dimension to whatever it's supposed to be. So if I just accept that and press 3D view, and let's just close down a few of these things. Let's leave that one open. We'll leave that one open. So now we have just like a frame, but the parameters are still active. So we can always come up here to this family types dialog, and you can see that the parameter that we made is in here. So I can just come in here and change the frame width to 100 millimeters and apply it. So the entire frame then changes globally. So then you have control over the frame width. The nice thing about that is when we insert that family into the project, then the parameters come with it. So we still have the frame width. We can still modify the frame width within the project. Okay, so let's just do it again. I think the first thing I'm going to do is we'll just change the extrusion of it because we want it to be centered. I'm not going to give a parameter to the width of it yet, to the actual thickness of the frame. I'm just going to select it, and I'm going to change the extrusion start to minus 25, and I'm going to change the extrusion end to plus 25. So now you can see that it's equalized around the center line plane. And now I'm going to come in here and I'm going to put another panel in there. I'm going to create extrusion to make a rectangle. And once again, I'm going to use the align tool and then lock the edges of this. Could be glass, or it could be timber, or it could be whatever else, another type of material that you have inside the frame. So I'm locking that to the interface of the frame. And with this one, I'm going to make extrusion start at minus 10 and extrusion end at plus 10. Apply. And then we accept it. So now we've got something, you know, that could be, it could be a glazed panel, or it could be a timber panel, or whatever. So I'm just going to give it a material. So I'm going to select the frame, and you can see over here the material is set to by category. Now there's two things we could do here. Is we could either just go in here and open up the materials dialog as usual, and we could give it a material, or we can also parametricize the material so that when it comes into the project, you have the chance to modify the material in the project as well. Does everyone understand that? We'll find out. So over here, beside the materials dialog, there's something is like a associate family parameter button. So this tiny little button over here, where I can select that, and we have the opportunity to add a parameter to the material. So I'm going to add a parameter, and this one I'm just going to call frame material. Again, it's a type parameter, and it's under materials and finishes. Press OK. So you can see that once I do that, the material is grayed out. So you can't change the material now within the family. You can only change it later within the project. So let's just do that again. I'm going to select the inner one, and I'm going to select this family parameter, add a parameter, and I'm going to call this panel material. Press OK. OK. So let's save all that. I'm going to save as family. Put it on the desktop. We'll call it panel test. And now we can load it into the project and test and see if it works properly. So once it's loaded into the project, I can come down to my panel here that I want to put it into, tab it until I select the individual panel, and I should have the option to change it to panel test here. So panel test has come in. Now, once we select panel test and edit the type, all those parameters that I put in there, you can see are existing. So in here, I can actually change the frame material to what I want to, because we've added the parameters within the family. We've given it that option. So let's just say we want to make it oak. Okay. So now we can actually modify it. But the nice thing is, if I then want to put one over here, because we made it a family parameter, if you change one of them, it changes all of them. So it will just keep the thing going. But it will modify the scale of it based on, you know, where you want to put it. So wherever there's a panel, sometimes you need to unlock them, you can put in the elements you want. Of course, I could change that to glass or whatever afterwards. I'm just going to pause that. All right. So now we have the, let's say it's a door. It looks like a door. So let's assume it's a door, this panel that we're making. I want to make a door handle for it because I've decided I want to put an extreme level of detail into my model. So the easy way to make an addition to something like this is not to make it directly in the panel family itself. It's to make it outside as a separate family and then insert it into the panel family. So if you're going to make a door handle, the best one to use is probably the face-based generic model because it automatically sticks to any surface. So I'm going to go in here and say new family. I'm going to say metric generic model face-based. Open. And here we have the kind of setup that the face-based model has. It has an idea of a kind of a wall, just to show you that this is what it's going to be fixed to. So a face-based generic model is good for making anything that's going to stick to a floor, a roof. Well, floor doesn't matter so much because it does that automatically. But a wall, a roof, a ceiling, anything that you needed to align to without having too much trouble with it. So let's see if we go back into the reference level again. Let's just make a simple one. Actually, let's go into the front view. I think I'll just make a revolve here so we don't spend too much time modeling it. Well, I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll go back in and we'll make a plate first of all. So the first thing we'll do is make an extrusion. Like that. Now we can give this extrusion, we can equalize this extrusion around the center here if we just give it a dimension. So I'm going to give this a dimension to here, equalize it, and this one to here, and equalize that. So once we do that, we can just change the extrusion start from 0 to, let's say it's 15 millimeters thick. Let's assume it's like it's a plate, a steel plate or something, and apply. So then we have, something that looks like that. Let's turn up the scale a little bit. And then we'll go back in, actually we'll go to the front view, and I'm actually going to draw an old style kind of doorknob. I'm just going to draw a doorknob. So how would you make a doorknob in this situation? So I'm going to go into create, I'm going to make a revolve. So let's just make a boundary line that comes out, let's make it 10 mils. I'm just going to turn off the line thicknesses. And we won't worry about the actual dimensions too much, but let's make something that kind of looks like a doorknob. And let's just make an arc over to here. And basically what you need to do is just draw the profile of one side of the revolve. And if I go into the 3D view, so I press accept then, oh, I forgot to choose the axis. You need to choose the axis it's going to revolve around, otherwise you don't know where it's going to revolve around. So the axis line is here. And if we accept that, we've got something that kind of looks like a doorknob, well, an ugly doorknob from the 70s anyway. We can make it a kind of plastic gold color and, or something like that. All right, we won't worry about that too much. Once again, we can come over here and we can give the material a parameter. So I select it, and we say add parameter, and let's call it doorknob material. It's a type parameter, press OK. Okay. So now we've made just the doorknob. We need to load it into the panel. So I'm going to load it into panel test, not into project 1. and it comes in. So you can see if I move the cursor on top of it, it starts to generate something. Let's see what that looks like. Okay, so that was a little bit. maybe we need to design that a little bit better next time, but we won't worry about it. Tell you what we'll do. We'll just increase the width of the frame. Increase the width of the frames to do it. So just select that. Change the frame width to 250. So now we just need, how do we locate it within the element itself? So I'm going to go into the exterior, or we go into the interior. It's on the interior side. Let's leave it on the interior for the moment. So I'm going to make a reference plane that describes where in the panel we want it to go, because that's how you control dimensions. So make a reference plane here to here, and I need to assign dimensions to that reference plane. So I select this reference plane here, and we do the same thing again. We select it, and we give it a label, add a parameter, and I'm going to call it door knob height. And now I'm just going to select this element and align it like that, and then lock it. So it's locked in place. So now we just have to make sure that it's centered within the within the panel itself, because it's centered in the vertical plane, but now we have to center it in the horizontal plane. So I'm going to make another reference plane. Create reference plane. Just draw it down here. You can see you always draw things in families. You just draw them randomly first, and then you actually come back and you set them in the correct place afterwards. So I want to set a dimension for how far the center of this doorknob is going to be from the the edge of the panel. So let's put a dimension on it first, from here to here. Once again, I'm going to give it a label, add a parameter, and I'm going to call it distance from edge, just so I remember what it is. And then, once again, I can align, select this, and align the door and lock it to it. So now it's locked. It's locked vertically and it's locked horizontally. So we should be able to, in some way, control, how it works. So if I press this and turn on the doorknob height, if I change that to, let's just make this a bit smaller so we can see it. If I change that to 800 and apply it, you can see the doorknob now is locked to that height within the project or within the panel. But the distance from edge, it actually, because we can control the width of the frame, it would make more sense if the distance from the edge was related to the width of the frame. If we make it so it's always centered on the frame. So I'm going to make it a calculated value. So I'm going to say the distance from edge is the frame width divided by 2. And hopefully that'll work. So you can see it centers it then in the frame width. Make sense? Yeah? That's okay. So now what should happen if I modify the frame width, if we make it 500, for example, the doorknob should always remain centered within it, like that, okay? So now let's just save that. Let's load it back into the project. Project 1. Okay. Override. And you can see there it is there. So select it, and we can give it, we can edit the type, and we can modify all those parameters now directly in the project again. So doorknob height is fine. Frame width, let's make it 200, let's say. That was quite fashionable in the 90s to have very large frames. Frame width 200, yeah, and then of course we can change the materials and so on. Let's change the panel material to glass just because we can. And we'll change the frame material back to, let's change the walnut. Something like that. Now, you probably would spend more time designing your doorknob than that, but anyway, the principle of it is that you take a generic face model and you place it into, the model, the curtain wall panel model, and then into the curtain wall panel. Okay? I just thought I'd tell you about that.